And here we go. Hey, hello, and welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the At Random podcast. My name is Rick Timmis.
I'm John Wordsworth.
I'm Jackson Matthews.
Yeah, Jack arrived late this evening. I'd been using the latest release of the At Random timer for his timepiece. So in Jack's world, he's on time. In our world, he's late.
Jack arrives precisely when he means to.
Oh, exactly. Brilliant. Good stuff. So, well, how are you anyway, Jack? Has it been stressful getting here with such haste and urgency for this very important show?
Well, yeah, it's just more of the same, really. It's more baby stuff. I was telling John a second ago how about like we'd had a lovely day with Bernie, and then right at the end she decides to sort of like trip and bonk her head again. And I was like, no, we nearly made it without any single problems, but still we still had a lovely day though, and yeah, I think I might be starting to get the hang of it. Endurance is still an issue for me,
Yeah, no, you never get the hang of it. Just when you get the hang of it, they go change all the rules.
Yeah, that's right. They adapt like the bloody Borg or something.
Yeah, they do. They keep you on your toes. They most certainly keep you on your toes for sure. So my crew are busy making all kinds of things. There is like lions and paintings and bees, and my poor wife is running around in circles. She's trying to make beehive cakes and little bumblebees, and then I came home tonight and they're dancing around the house and singing all over the place. And I'm thinking, I walked in and I just thought, this is like a madhouse. And then I went, no, this is not like a madhouse. This is a madhouse. What is going on?
You got apiaries and beehives everywhere, and
oh yeah, honestly, you've never seen anything like it. Absolutely bonkers it is. But there you go. Ah yes. And John, so how are things with you, my good friend? What's it like in Sweden? What's going on?
Well, since the last show, so I guess about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we had Midsummer since the last show, and in the UK that kind of passes us by. I guess we don't really think of Midsummer much beyond a bunch of bank holidays around May. But it's a pretty big deal here, and we had quite a lot of fun. But the weird thing is just how damn late it is when the sun goes down and how early it comes up. There are 3 excuses I have decided for seeing the sunrise. 3 legitimate ones. There's drinking, gaming, and nerding out. 3 like coding away.
Yeah.
3 legitimate excuses, and I've seen the sunrise because of all 3 in this last month. Because the sun comes up at about 3 in the morning.
Wow. What time does it go down then? What time is it dark? I mean, proper dark, not dipsy, but.
I mean, around midsummer, so it's just starting to get slightly more back to normal now. But I guess over the last month or so, it's been. You look out the window at kind of 10:30, and there's still light in the air. About 11, I guess it's kind of what passes for dark, but it's never quite fully dark. If you know, like you look at the sky and it's like there's a still tiny bit of light in the sky, like, and then I guess you get a couple of hours of almost proper darkness, and then 2:30 in the morning, you're like, this looks like dawn is becoming a thing. And then at 3 in the morning, it's like just like the morning.
You're still up at 3 o'clock?
Sometimes playing some games, doing some coding, all the fun stuff.
Watching that light in the sky that keeps following you everywhere.
Oh, those days! How you remember them, Jack? Now the only time to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning is to sort of blearily stumble across the landing and retrieve the smelly nappy and deploy a new shiny one.
To be fair, that's usually when I go to bed, 3 o'clock. Unless she's given me a particularly rough day of it. She's good.
Oh.
What's happened here, John? What's happened there, John? Strange things afoot.
I heard you talking exceedingly fast. I was worried that the reptilians might have not like that broadcast and decided to scrub it from history. You know?
No, I just got nervous. I talk fast when I'm nervous.
I'm sure I saw you shape-shifting then, Jackson.
You saw me shake.
I'm pretty sure it's your net connection, Jack, not mine.
I tell you what, we all got to put these on. Put the glasses on.
Oh, yeah!
And then you'll see them as they really are. You two look all right.
Hang on a minute. How can I do that? How can I get the goggles on? Let me have a look.
I don't know if a monocle will get you there.
Halfway. Give me halfway.
I don't want to be fully immersed.
This is where Rick shows off how Chromium on Linux is probably the only browser that doesn't support the cool features.
You can't
hold
protect
your
yourself.
horses there a minute.
You can't protect yourself.
Hey.
There you go, you see. I'm ready to go and find Atlantis.
Oh dear.
I know where it is. I've seen the maps and everything. You can find it. It's all on Wikipedia. Well, not Wikipedia, but you can find it all on the net. It's all there.
All the
Google
damn
Maps.
crucial information that should be kept in the diary somewhere.
The point is now we're armed. Now we're armed and we're getting serious about it. Is the point?
Quite indeed. Well, so let's have a quick whip round of what you're drinking, what you bring with you today. So, John, what you got there with you?
In this fine canister is 2 PG Tips tea bags.
It's the taste.
And 3 mugs of tea. There's a store nearby that sells PG Tips, so every now and then I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go old school. Go British tea. You know?
Hey, John, do you know the piano's on my foot?
God, yeah, that is going back, isn't it?
Oh, I love all the PG Tips adverts. I love them.
They were the best ones. The ones with the animal exploitations were the.
Oh, no.
Those were my absolute favourite.
Yeah, the years of persecution and electric shock therapy they gave to those chimpanzees to make them say it's their taste.
Can you ride tandem?
I wonder what Google Photos thinks those chimpanzees are.
Where are they now? That kind of thing. Hollyoaks, probably.
Oh dear.
Oh, awesome. Absolutely awesome. Yeah, good. Okay.
What are you drinking?
Ah, right. Okay. So, well, my friend, Funkle Rob, I call him, plays a bass and does all musical stuff, bought me a bottle of Buffalo Trace, an American bourbon. So I've got a little bit of that this evening. I thought to myself, I just want to help lube. I'm trying to get an open mind this evening, you know.
Sounds like you've had a couple already, Jack.
Yeah, I think your mind's opening up nicely.
And what about you, Jack?
Oh God, absolutely boring. It's coffee, but it's medicinal purposes coffee. There we go. I've got my special muglet. This is version 2. Version 1 sadly died in the line of duty.
Oh, that's good. I like the mug, Jackson. It looks really cool. Good stuff. Well, okay. Well, let's plow on through and angle bracket, audio segue, angle bracket.
Oh, hang on.
Yay!
Oh no way, Ace! We got sound effects and everything. God bless Google. Fantastic. Well, do you know what? That's the news of what we've been up to. Let's get into the app reviews. So, let's kick off with you, Johnston, as you're on the top of the list. What have you been discovering and playing about with lately that you can recommend to us all?
So, got a friend at work to thanks for this recommendation. But there is an app which you can load onto your mighty fine iOS or Android phone called Tapastic. 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 Yeah, one of the two. But it's a comic, like a web comic reader. And it has God knows how many people drawing their comics online, but it's specifically for people making the kind of web comics that come out one page every 3 days or something. And you fire it up, and every day it shows you 5 that you haven't seen before, so it tries to get you to look at some new ones. And then you can go back to your, what do they call it? Not your library, but something like that. And you can look through your reading list. Fitting name. And you can look through your reading list for all the ones that have had new pages posted, and then have a bit of a read. So it's a really well done app. You can sign up for free. It's presented really well, makes the comics really nice and easy to read. You can just tap through them. And what's pretty cool is you can just kind of keep scrolling. So if it's like a many-page comic, you can just kind of keep scrolling through the pages by tapping the little down arrow. Yeah, makes them really accessible. And I think it's pretty good for the artists too, because they've got a system where you can pledge. So if there's a comic you really like, you can go and say, you know what, this is pretty good. I'll give them $1 a month. And then the artist gets more and more money and hopefully makes more and more pages so you can keep enjoying the comic. And just looking at one of the creators on there, it's probably the minority, obviously, rather than the norm, but she makes a pretty awesome comic, and she's getting over $1,000 a month in pledges, which is pretty cool. So.
Bloody hell, just in pledges?
Yeah, so she's got the comic is called Strays, and it's had 370 pages so far.
Right.
I haven't even read up to where the fresh one yet, because I haven't been using the app for more than a couple of weeks. So I'm about halfway through at the moment. But yeah, it's got 16,000 people that follow it, and together, collectively, they're pledging $1,200 a month. But yeah,
sure.
It's really nice to see someone. I mean, they're really good pages and stuff. But it's really nice to see someone who's I don't know whether she's a student or this is actually her job, or she might be an artist and this is something on the side. But it's nice to see that they're getting recognition for their work and therefore able to put more time into it. And some of these artists are really good, and some of them are okay, but the comics are really good. Like their content's good, or they're funny, and therefore you don't mind that the art isn't necessarily the best.
This is the thing. If somebody's telling a story really well, then you honestly don't notice how bad the art might be or how lacking it might be, do you? Because, well, in that case, I guess the art's pretty good because the art is doing its job, so to speak.
I'd imagine, I haven't seen it enough yet, but I imagine over time you'll kind of see people getting better, which is pretty cool. So
yeah.
I mean, I'm just looking here at the Tapastic website,
Sorry, Rick. The whole time he was doing that review, I was struggling to get out of my head that you were a pirate. I think I just about I've come round to Rick the pirate now. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, if I keep, we could stop laughing in the middle. I quite like this look. Actually, I was thinking, I can go with this. I might stick with this for the show just for kicks. But yeah, so I was looking at the website here, and I mean, I really do like cartoons and animation. I'm a big fan of all the cartoon video type cartoons, whether things like Road Runner and Bugs Bunny and Yosemite Sam and all that kind of jazz.
Yeah.
But just looking through this artwork here, I mean, these amateurs, or we call them amateurs, but to be fair, a lot of the work here, I wouldn't be able to not distinguish it from being professional work. I mean, some of it's just great. The artwork is ace, absolutely really good.
Yeah, some of it's stunning. I mean, they're obviously the ones who are getting the most followers. Some of it is just like, yeah, these guys could probably be making comics in a couple of years' time if they choose that's what their path should be.
What you mean, full-on comics as opposed to like web comics?
Yeah. I mean, if they wanted to go to find a company, I'm not saying that many of them. There's probably 1 in 1,000 or something, but you look at it, or even 1 in 100, isn't it? But you look at it and go, yeah, these are just top quality, really good artists. They're probably up and coming,
Yeah, sure.
In the industry.
It's just, I mean, the whole kind of comic kind of sketch art type stuff. Is this sort of thing anything that you've sort of considered doing in the past, or considered doing at all, Jackson? This kind of artwork.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing that you always want to have a go at if you had time for. I mean, many years ago, me and John actually did do like a couple of parts to one, didn't we, John?
Yeah, Angry Rooster.
Yeah, Angry Rooster. That's right. Yeah.
I did think of that when I saw this app. I thought we could,
Yeah.
You can just pencil them and I'll do all the rest.
And I was so much worse at the old at art then as well. I mean, since then, I think to myself, like, what I could do with it now. And I think of those first couple of pages, God, it's cringe making. But yeah, it's the kind of thing. I mean, I'd love to do it now if I had the time. I could probably make the time, but it's hard to.
Thing you've got time for, you know, like.
It's hard to get. It's hard to get your head in the zone. I mean, once you've started, once you're into it, and it's like, and the inspiration sort of feeding itself, then you make time and you don't mind. You can just like cough it out. But getting started on it, yeah, it's very hard to. It's very hard to get into stuff like that now. But yeah, something I'd love to do more of. Hell, I want to do more of everything. You know what I mean? Yeah, if we have more time, yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of weird though. Like, unfortunately, when you're in work, you haven't got the time. Like when you've got work going, and when you haven't got work on at the moment, you haven't got the enthusiasm.
Yeah.
For some weird reason, you've got all the time in the world, but you're just sort of. I guess if you're the sort of person who works for a living normally, when you're out of work for a bit, you think that's the perfect time to do all this stuff, but you just can't bring yourself to do it because you kind of like, oh, well, I've not got a job.
Because you just, just zonking out at the end of the day.
The worst thing ever. There's no medium, you know. I think actually medium, and this is the dream in the future. It's like working 3.5 days a week. I think that's 3 to 4. I don't know what the perfect number is yet, but if I could just work 4 days a week, that would be perfect. That's 1 day a week just to go. My own projects, and then it's open source coding, a bit of this, a bit of that.
Yeah. A webcomic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can subscribe to that, John, for sure. I think it's great doing that. You're working flat out, but 5 days a week actually is a lot. It's a big chunk out of the week, and then you've got to catch up with all the other bits and pieces that you've got to get done at the weekend, and the time is just gone. And like Jack's saying about, getting the time to do the comics. I mean, I've still got the Magnatune, Magnapie, that Magnatune player that's half written. I was only thinking about it today and thinking to myself, I really got to get back and, that's 50, it's like over 50% of the way there, and it just needs finishing. But just like finding the time to do that work, to get your head back into it, and then all these other things come along all the time. The world just moves too fast, man.
Yeah. 4 days a week, like, that is actually I think the only thing that would beat working where I am now is like if the opportunity arose, which I know it won't, so it's irrelevant, but to do the same thing I'm doing now but for 4 days a week, I think I'd just jump at it, because having that 1 day a week to do all your own stuff, and I don't actually think it's much less productive from a work perspective either. I mean, I'd happily take the 20% pay cut, but I don't think you would do 20% less work.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. Certainly Google certainly think of that, don't they,
Because I mean, I don't know, for however many hours a week, you're less productive because you're knackered or you're thinking about the stuff. Whereas the year that I worked 4 days a week, I didn't really have that ever. Because you work 2 days, you have a day off, you work 2 days. It's just 2 days of work, bam, 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 get it all done.
Yeah, there's probably a lot to be said for that. Well, so we digress a little bit away from where we're at, but Tapastic or tapastic.com, and you can get that for the iPhone and for Android. And no doubt, looking at the website here, I would think that I'll be able to get one of my crafty mates to knock something up for the Ubuntu phone on that. I'll put that on Mr. Honeycutt's the app developers list. I've already got him working on Full Circle magazine. so when he's finished that one, he can knock up an app for this.
If it has an API, or whether they're... I don't think it has an API, but I suspect if you talk to them, they could help.
Yeah, probably be able to get something going, certainly for sure to get the platform going. It looks really cool, really, really good. Cool. Moving swiftly into the next section, so it's me up on the list next. And speaking of the Ubuntu phone, as you guys know, I've been using the Ubuntu phone full time now, probably for around about 6 weeks or so, 6-7 weeks. I really like it, very much so. It's working out fine for me. There are a few differences, and there are a few features. So one, synchronizing calendars to my own cloud, my own implementation of my own cloud server doesn't kind of work out of the box, but I might have something to do with that. But otherwise, I'm able to do all the things that I could largely do on my Samsung tab. One of my favorite pastimes, in actual fact, is listening to podcasts. I love making these podcasts, but I love listening to them as well, all the different ones. And you've heard me talk about them in the past, and you've also heard me talk about podcatching clients in the past. So it was really quite important to me to find a native application, and that was important. I didn't just want a web app. I wanted a proper native phone application from the Ubuntu store. There is one. It's called Podbird, and I've put a link in the show notes. You can find it on Launchpad. If you put Podbird Launchpad into Google, you'll find it. And it's really, really, really good. I mean, the whole UI experience on the Ubuntu phone has been really well thought out. They've been very rigid in their brand guidelines, their styling guidelines, their UI guidelines, and the way everything works. And that means that even though you've got this very dystopian kind of collective developing apps in an open source manner, because those guidelines and those developer guidelines and branding are so rigid, the look and feel of all of the different apps is very, very consistent. And so this just feels and works really, really well. The artwork is simple but really nice, and the functionality is great. You can go and it provides a search engine for you, and they've obviously locked themselves into a number of different feeds where you can find about different podcasts. So you just type in Linux Action Show or At Random or whatever you want to do, and you can find them. I was able to find At Random, our show, as well. Just typed it into the search feed, At Random, bosh, and up it came. I'll subscribe to that one. So that works really nicely. And then it has a scheduler in the background that allows you to specify how many episodes you want to download and keep. What do you want to do with old episodes? Do you want to delete them or get rid of them? And then it schedules them into a queue and downloads them in the background overnight or whenever you're on Wi-Fi or whatever, and so on and so forth. So, considering the Ubuntu phone is so new and all of this stuff is so well worked on, these guys have just done an awesome job of putting together a really, really good, capable app. And on top of that, finally, it interfaces directly with my Philips Bluetooth headphones. So I just fire up the podcast, throw it in the back of my bicycle or back of my bag, Bluetooth headphones on, and off I go to work listening to my podcasts. It's ace. Really, really good job.
Awesome. Just out of interest, are you still running the BQ phone, or are you using the Meizu yet? Is that out yet?
No, I didn't buy the Meizu yet. It is out. You can get it, but I decided that the BQ phone it's just really good. It works really, really well for me. I'm very comfortable with it, and the Meizu phone is good. But I discovered that it comes. I think you can get it might be a 16 gig and a 32 gig and a 64 gig phone, or it's 8, 16, 32, whatever, whichever way. But there's no SD card on it, so you can't put a new card in or out or something like that. And that really put me off. I'm not keen on that. And also it's got this funny little button, and somebody else was reviewing it and saying that because obviously Ubuntu Touch is everything is done with sweeping gestures and stuff like that, and the Meizu phone comes right to the side of the screen. So those aspects put me off, and I just thought to myself, okay, well, look, it's got more native memory on board, and it's got these 8 cores, which will be ace if I want to run, I don't know, some big data application. I want to run, I don't know, MongoDB on it or something like that, then that would be great. But I don't want to run MongoDB on my phone. And the BQ phone, I mean, some people have said, oh, it's a bit slow, oh, it's a bit underpowered. I've not found that at all. I've found the BQ phone just brilliant, and the people that I've shown it to at work as well, I've taken it to my mates at work, chucked it at them and said, here you go, here's an Ubuntu phone, what do you reckon to that? And they've gone, oh yeah, this is really cool, wow, I really like it, yeah, this is, it was very, very positive feedback. And then they've said, Well, how much was that? Expecting me to start kicking back £450 or, you know, this kind of money that you would expect. And when I say it's €160, which is about 130 quid, and that's network free, unlocked. You can put it on any network you like. And they almost fall on the floor like they can't believe it.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
So I've held off for that reason, and also now the rumours, the Ubuntu rumour mill says that later in the fall, so in the autumn time of this year, they're going to release a convergent device, which will have a HDMI socket on it or some kind of dock feature, more power again than the Meizu phone, and this will be this device to unplug it from the dock, it's the phone, plug it into the dock, it's a desktop computer.
Yeah.
They've got my money. As soon as they bring that out, they've got my money.
They've hacked my bank account. They've got my money.
Sorry, I pushed this on from the app because I was quite excited to hear about the phone. But so I take it with the podcasting app, you can set weights. I'm not really sure how the SD card works on something like that, but you can set it to download on the SD card or not. Is it just mounted to a directory like you would in Linux, or?
So I think it is just mounted to a directory, so I think it just saves directly to the main phone memory at the moment, because there was I requested a feature to the developers because I said to them, well, you know, this is really good, but could you make sure that if it's going to do that downloads, that you can have a switch that says only download when it's connected to Wi-Fi. Because it ran a download schedule on my mobile network, and that, yeah, you know, it was podcasts. It didn't take loads and loads, but it did run the data up a little bit, and I'm try to be quite careful with my data. So that was a thing. And there isn't any location setting for the file at the moment where you can where you want to put this thing. So those are two features that they are working on, but the important factor here is that in the true sense, just like the Ubuntu desktop, like once a week or probably once a week, there's a new update with new updated apps, new updated operating systems. That's all of that stuff's coming over the air, and it's changing, you know, really quite regularly. So the great thing about that is as they roll these new features out, you get them straight away. So that's really cool too.
So that was Podbird, and is it free?
Podbird is free, yes.
Sounds great.
Free as a bird, in fact.
Hey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hold on.
That's before I do the joke. The symbols come after I do the joke.
I didn't know what it was going to sound like. I just saw drums. I was hoping it was boom.
You wanted one of them rim shots.
Maybe that's this one.
There, that's the one. There we go. Perfect.
Magic.
But what app have you brought this week, Jackson?
Well, it's not quite an app. It's a book. It's one that I own. It's the Rough Guide to Conspiracy Theories, and it sounds like the kind of thing. What I like about it is that it's actually quite a serious take on conspiracies, and it gives you all the. It's quite a chunky book as well, and it has to categorize its conspiracy theories by like. They group them by like things like mass murders, government cover-ups, alien conspiracies, and they categorize them like that. They take you through the basics as like a primer for like basic knowledge on what each one's all about, and then they go out of their way to give you as much information as they can on each one, good and bad. So like they're quite happy to tell you whether like a theory is probably not that plausible, like the Philadelphia experiment, and they try and do it all with a straight face. So they even like touch on stuff like Holocaust deniers, and they approach that quite sensitively, to be fair to them. But they say we have to acknowledge this because for a lot of people this is considered a conspiracy, even though the author writes, even though we know that's a load of rubbish, but but we have to acknowledge these people. So then they'll take you through the facts and the numbers and as many accounts as they can, and it's very interesting just because of the depth of the information in there, really, and they cover quite well. They cover like all the major stuff from your place of work, Rick, Harp.
Oh yes, yeah.
Harp is in there, so we got your number.
That's not a conspiracy theory. It's fact.
A
Absolutely.
conspiracy fact.
Conspiracy fact. It is.
Yeah, well, all that stuff's in there, and yeah, it's just a very engaging read. I mean, I hesitate to refer to anything as a good toilet book, and have it as like be a glowing review. But I mean that as like a fully fledged endorsement, because it'll be a while before you run out of entries to read on it. Basically, it feels
Run out of pages to wipe your ass with.
what's that? AIDS is a mass murder weapon, right? That's going up there. But yeah, it's a very good read. It's very very in depth, no nonsense, and yeah, it leaves just enough room to keep your imagination from giving up and shooting itself.
Oh look, there's different versions of it. So that the one the link I've got here, the Rough Guide to Conspiracies, I was looking at, and then it says customers also viewed the Rough Guide to Conspiracy Theories the third. So
Yes.
whether that's like a new episode. So there's more than one version of this thing here. The Twin Towers feature again. Excellent.
Exactly. Yeah. Because we've had like a few good conspiracy theories since, haven't we? They call themselves truthers, don't they? Those guys, the 9/11 truthers.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and of course they call themselves truthers, and there's truth. Look, where is the harp installation? And did it have anything to do with the Japanese tsunami disaster? Well, look, I can't talk about that, guys.
You've said too much already.
I have. I've said too much already, Jack. You're quite right.
Twirling your moustache there.
Evil moustache.
Yeah, right.
Well, I've got to disguise who I am, because obviously, I am an anonymous source.
I'm the man with no name, Rick Tillis.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, that looks really good. I think I might even get myself a copy of that, because I love all of this stuff. We're going to get into it in just a second, into all of this kind of stuff. But this is my bag, man. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you'd love it. You'd love it, Rick.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to get that. I can even say Illuminati, like Keith Lemon. Good. Okay. Right. Fantastic. Well, that looks like a really good book, actually. And do you know, it says something about if you have that in your house in the loo, right? It's just sitting there like it's on top of the loo. That's the reading matter for the loo. When people come to visit, they don't come again, do they? And that's good, because obviously it keeps the shopping bill down, and they don't make so much of a mess in the kitchen when people don't come round.
They never leave. Once they know the truth, you can't let them go. Bloody hell.
Yeah. Did you go to the toilet? Oh, you did. Oh, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to kill you. Put the oven on gas, Mark 5, love.
That's exactly
it. Oh, magic. Well, okay, so we're going to do another one of those special shows. So angle bracket, segue audio, and close angle bracket.
There we go. Smooth. That worked. That worked.
Hey, look at that. Do you know, you don't get this kind of professionalism in a professional setting, do you?
You don't. It's true.
Well, do you know, I wanted to get, so we did one of these shows way back in the day, right? And we got into something at the time, and I just want to make a connection back to that show. So I've got a list here that you can see in the show notes of various different things that people have talked about, and we can add to them as we go through the conversation. But let's just kick back to that show when we discussed the Hollow Earth, and let's see whether we can just get Jack. Can you just give us a very quick reminder about where this Hollow Earth story kind of originates from?
Well, as for where it comes from, I suspect it's like originally it's got its roots in it. Is it H.G. Wells' The Lost World?
I tend to think so. There's some the fiction, but fiction going on there. Yeah, possibly.
I think that's where the idea took root in people's heads. And since then, we've had like things like satellite imagery has taken pictures of the Earth, and people have seen these images of the Earth, and as I remember it in the Phenomena, this another brilliant crackpot book I've got, and it's got like these gaps at the top and bottom of the globe where no data was recovered.
Oh.
yeah, man. So people, the Hollow Earthers, have taken it upon themselves to say, oh well, those must be the way into like this world within a world, which I've got to admit is a wonderfully surreal and fantastic idea. I can see why people would go for it. But I've got all these images from the Lost World of like giant mushrooms, isn't there, and dinosaurs, and probably some hot cave women sprinkled in there. But it's not. It wasn't among the most plausible ones in that book, and there were some very silly things in that book. But what I can't work out is why it persists. I mean, I can understand. No, I mean, it's a big old planet, and there's got to be a lot going on down there that we don't know about. But the idea of the Hollow Earth is a little bit beyond that, isn't it? They're saying there's a whole civilization down there.
Yeah, I mean, like, if they were just trying to sell us something like there's little pockets where people live, maybe, you know, like there's an underground dungeon or something, and there's a few pockets where little groups of people live that don't need sunlight for some weird reason.
Yeah.
There would almost potentially be, you know, that could be possible.
See, now that I could buy, I could accept the possibility of, yeah, like a subterranean creatures. I mean, that's not crazy, is it?
But an entire inside-out Earth, it's like earthquakes.
It's a bit too neat, isn't it?
Waves travel through the Earth, and that's how we figure what's inside. I'm pretty sure that's not all wrong, you know.
Well, lies, isn't it, John? That's the conspiracy.
Oh, of course, yeah.
They tell you
it'd have to be hidden. They couldn't possibly say, you know what, the Earth's hollow.
Yeah, this is the problem with it, because like people could just like throw that up every time and say, oh yeah, you're being lied to every time like you hit something inconvenient like that.
Yeah,
what if?
Like, why?
Well, of course, there were these stories from back in the day. At the time, this fairly reputable pilot who did some of the early Arctic explorations over the poles, and he came back. Was he called Richard Byrd or something like that? But he came back and reported flying over the Arctic, and suddenly, you know, appearing in this new world, this new area where he'd found an entry point into this, you know, wonderful, beautiful new world with all of these new lands and so on and so forth. So of course you have that, and then you have all the other theories that talk about the Nazis and under you know, the Nazi occupation of the poles, and that they spent huge amounts of time and sent submarines down there, and since then they have established and colonized there, and after the end of the Second World War, when all was lost, they retreated there, and that there was the young lady pilot who was conscripted to fly Hitler out from the bunker, and he either went to South America and had hundreds of children with the South American people, and people have seen loads of little South American children that they think might be related to Hitler, and some of them are apparently called Adolf, and
so he loosened up a bit in his old age.
Yes, apparently so.
Racially, pretty cool.
What they've been able to do, of course, is that being, you know, amazingly scientific and very advanced, they've developed all the UFO technology. They developed their anti-gravity engines to go in these Bell craft, and of course now, you know, it's all the Iron Eagles type story scenario that got played out, and of course, as the conspiracy theorists will tell you, very often the truth is being hidden in plain sight, and these movies that we see are there to condition people into a level of acceptance about the idea that, you know, that the Nazis have established a fervent, technologically advanced home inside of the Hollow Earth, you know, taking over the indigenous population that was there before, and now are holding the globe to ransom at a point which will suit themselves.
Man, I can see. I can't believe that Hitler would be so quiet about it. The thing about Nazis can't shut up about how great they are, can they? They couldn't do anything secretly. I mean, look at the way they march.
They're the master race.
Yeah, that's it, and they want you to know it, don't they? I don't think they could do anything secretly.
The thing that always kind of comes back to me whenever I mean, I'm sure that a lot of these theories are going to rely upon like government cover-ups and secrecy and massive lies, and I just think the government mostly are pretty incompetent. There is no hope they could do this. You know, it's like.
Plus, I think their goals
Cameron
also
wants to ban encryption. I mean, that's
Yeah.
not a man who can hide reptilians who are secretly controlling the government. You know.
I just think governments' goals. I think governments do like to cover things up. It's just that their goals are so much more mundane than we give them credit for. They're.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to cover up like bank fraud or like embezzlement or fiddling your expenses because they just don't bother.
Well, you wouldn't. I was going to say you wouldn't think it was that easy to cover up. They keep getting caught.
I mean, this is what their conspiracies are all about. And then if they get caught out by paper, they're just like, oh, sorry, yeah, I forgot you were there. And that's about. I mean, American governments might be a little bit better at it, and Chinese governments have got it down. They really enjoy that stuff. I don't know if I'm more comfortable with the idea of a government that can cover everything up, or one that can't. Do you know what I mean? Like, if I thought a government was together enough to build like a castle inside a mountain and populate it full of like elephants with machine guns on their heads without us knowing about it, I'd be strangely okay with that, because I think, oh right, Christ, they know what they're doing.
At least they're competent, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I think I'd feel
they're able to set a plan and put it into motion, which I don't have any faith is actually possible.
Yeah, that's it. Rather than the headless hydra that it probably is.
Well, you kind of. I mean, I don't know. There are so many different aspects of these different things that go on, and I think the competence of government is quite right. But of course, that's the conspiracy theories, or the theorists behind this would have. Their position on that would be that, well, the government actually in itself, people like Cameron and Obama and stuff like that, these people are not running the show anyway.
No.
They are guided, directed. They're in fact almost directly controlled. It's directly controlled theatre being run by a higher echelons, the Illuminati.
Yep.
Or the reptilians. I love David Icke's kind of reptilians model, and I love how he shifted. I love how he shifted what was largely a pretty severe state of mental illness when he went on the Wogan show to.
Yeah.
To now being able to evidence the idea of the reptilian race because of this evolutionary connection between the very primordial, is it the hypothalamus, which is a tiny little part of our brain that goes back to the reptilian species, and so there's an aspect of us, or of all mammals. There's an aspect of all mammals' mental makeup that has this dinosaur kind of relic right at the base stem. And so now, if we get challenged because all of a sudden, we do peel Hillary Clinton's eyelids off and realize that there isn't a reptile's eye under there at all. Actually, it's just an ordinary jelly and an optic nerve. And we're terribly sorry about that, love. We'll get you a new set.
She's tough. She can take it.
Yeah, she can, absolutely. And if you put yourself in a position of prominence like that, stick your head above the parapet, somebody's going to cut it off, aren't they? So, so of course that's when when it starts to fall apart. We can always fall back to that case in point, but it alludes to this to the Tales of V and the television program of V that was on with the reptilians and this and the other, and wow. Like, wow. What say you, folks?
I'm going to call bullshit again. I mean, there are are some conspiracy theories that I don't mind giving a little bit of weight to, but reptilians controlling the world.
There again, you don't see the evidence, do you, of of control? I mean, if there is like an overall agenda, you can't see any you can't see what it's supposed to be. I mean, I myself, I can't see that we're headed towards anything suggestive of it. I mean, it's like these conspiracy theories are always keen to tell you, like, oh well, last year it was this and this and this year, and it's all about it's all about Satan's depopulation agenda. It's an actual phrase from here we are, my thing here.
Yeah, the book. That's hard evidence. That is, Jack. Hang on to that. We're going to come back to that.
The written word. When all your computers get Y2K'd, this will still be a.
But it feels like you say, it feels like the only thing that these cover-ups are ever trying to accomplish is to be a cover-up. It's like,
yeah,
they're evil, and their entire plan is to never get found out. It's like, okay then.
Yeah. And then they've got strange ideas as to what's desirable as well. They say their plan, lizards or whatever, is to create like one world, one nation. They're going to unify all the nations, and I think that's all right, isn't it? Oh, but no, they say it will make you easier to control because like you'll all be under one umbrella, and you think, yeah, but we'll kill each other less. I mean, in what way would it be? In what way would it be so much worse? They got like this. That's the bit they're unclear on. It's like that when you get to that point, it's like then the hammer will come down, and then you'll see. But we don't really know how. We haven't really got that figured out.
If there was an alien race out there who was able to do shape shifting and all this sort of stuff, if they wanted to just kill us, we'd be dead.
Oh, they don't want to kill us.
Or there'd be a war or something. And if they don't want to kill us, that's cool.
They want to breed us, John. I'm afraid.
Yeah, they do, absolutely. Well, of course they do. They keep us here so that they can. It's good sport to go down and abduct us, particularly when we are isolated on our own in some location where people never really ever go, and then these super intelligent beings in the UFOs who are looking for specimens to sample from the species will go to the most remote areas where there aren't any of us. In the same way that our trawler fishermen, when they're going out fishing, the successful ones, as you know, go where the fish are, and the ones that end up working in McDonald's with their boat rotting in the harbour go where the fish aren't. So, the thing that
always drives me when you think about aliens is like, what would we do if we were the most powerful species? And that, if it's similar to that, then maybe I can buy it. But if it's not, then
like if they're anything like us, you mean like?
Well, just like there's certain incentives and there's certain ways we would act, and there's no reason we wouldn't act differently. Like if we wanted to take a planet, we wouldn't send reptilians down and be nice. We would just go, we're 10,000 years ahead of you. We're having this continent. Cheers. Yeah.
Maybe they're not.
We'll nuke you, or you can just live with it. Like the Americans wouldn't have some massive, convoluted 1,000-year plan of infiltrating the government. They'd just bomb them.
Or would they? Or would they?
And so if someone gives me a reasonable suggestion for why they're doing it this way, then maybe I'll believe it. But the usual arguments of because they want resources, or because they want the people, or because they want this, it's like, if they've got the power to come here from a different planet, they're light years ahead of us technology-wise. They can do whatever they want. They don't need to do it in this weird, sneaky way. Like we wouldn't go to another planet for the very first time and go, better make sure we don't let anyone know we're here ever. We'd just be like, hey, look at us, we've come to your planet.
I'm never 100% sure as to what their goals are. Yeah, they're always unclear on that as well, aren't they? It's just like to infiltrate, and then they just like kind of stop, don't they?
Let's dive in. Let's dive in deep for a moment then, because I know some of David Icke's stuff, because I watch quite a lot of his stuff and quite a lot of his material, and I've heard him talk quite a lot about this stuff, and I've seen how the message and the ideas morph over time. And one of the things we talked there about, okay, well, why would these reptilians be, why would there be a reptilian race that wanted us to be not aware of their presence, but wanted to control and farm and direct us? And the theory that seems to be unfolding about this is matrix theory, really. I mean, it's using very different language to describe the principle of the matrix. But what David talks about is, he says, well, our sense of reality, our perception of our physical being is actually an illusion, because we're just an interface to the universe. And so our sensory perception, the light that we see, the audio signals that we hear, the interactions with one another, none of these things exist, because nothing in the physical exists, because everything is a vibration or a hologram. And string theory supports this. The concepts behind string theory support the idea that matter actually is nothing but a consistent rhythm of vibration, and so we're built of that very matter. Now, what the reptilian races are interested in is they're interested in the energy forces and the vibrational forces that come with our presence in the world, or our presence in the universe. And so managing those interactions allows them to thrive in their dimensional state by breeding off the interactions in our dimensional state. And really what we're talking about here is just this kind of temporal, interdimensional
wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey. So I'm confused. The lizards are real, but we're not.
No,
They are another
interdimensional creature, because everything is interdimensional. Our perception of these 4 or 5 senses, or the three dimensions and the 4 senses, are constrained by the filters. They're constrained by the interfaces, or they're constrained by our API, if you like, in what it can communicate with in the universe. And as we've grown and learned and expanded and evolved, then our range of capability to decode this information that we decode through these different sensory perceptions, but all of that is sensory perception, and none of it's real.
If nothing's real, then what is real? Like, it's not real compared to what?
Well, I don't know.
David, what's David's address? I'll just
all
see if I
inside a magic 8-ball, and every now and then someone shakes it.
When it comes up, Outlook not good.
And then it suddenly pops up and says, "It looks like you're trying to write an email." So, well, do you know all right, so we're not happy to hang our coat on the reptilians who control the government, and then we're not persuaded by that one.
No.
So how about
to a string theory, I think.
so have any of you guys seen these pictures of the abominable snowman leaping around on Mars? Apparently taken by the Martian rover, this thing with long dangly hands running, trying to hide behind rocks with an orange landscape behind it, and of course also other footage of pine trees growing all over the place on Mars, and wow. And now they're having to, now NASA and the various rovers, they're having to Photoshop the imagery to take out the buildings and the infrastructure that's there on Mars. So
it's a lot of work, isn't it? I mean, you might as well just like film some other desert and just like stick a red filter on it.
No, that's a good point. You see, of course, that maybe that is somebody with particularly long arms in a gorilla suit in Nevada with a red filter over there
Probably works at Starbucks.
Possibly does. So, well, of course, life on Mars, populating Mars, moving to Mars. I mean, there's a group of people who are, well, they're up for it, aren't they? There's a group of people who signed up to jump on this ark, I suppose. Could we call it an ark, or maybe it's the modern day Mary Rose, not the Mary Rose, the Mayflower. Maybe it's the modern day Mayflower to go and to get on up there and start populating and growing veg and stuff.
I heard that, and a lot of people signed up, I think. But unfortunately, I also think that they're short a few $1 billion.
Where are they going to find that?
They're like, we still want to do it, but Kickstarter, anybody?
It's a lot of Nazi gold, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's lots about.
Yeah, that's it. But maybe they go up there, they can have a look and see if that Sidonian head is really something.
Yeah.
That classic. You know, guys know that classic picture?
Oh yes, the Sidonian head, absolutely.
Yeah.
The face on Mars.
I'm trying to see if I can find you a link to it. But basically, it was just an interaction of, well, supposedly a interaction of light and shadow on a top-down photo of Mars, and it looks just like a face. You got to admit it does look just like a face. But you can also see here's the picture. If I find you a link to it here, and I will just pop that in your chat here. Where is it? There you are. Check that out, John, and tell me that doesn't look like the face of God.
The face, I'll give you that.
It's a bit small for the face of God, I'll grant you, but nonetheless.
Yeah, that is such a great picture. It's really hard to not immediately see that as a face or a mask or.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I can see other pictures here of what that landmass actually looks like, and here it is, all supposedly anyway. You know, after Photoshop. There's the picture of what it looks like. Maybe, perhaps that could be anything. I don't know.
Oh man, they've photoshopped it. Look at that.
I'm not convinced. I could do that in my sandpit and convince myself harder, I think.
You know, how big is Mars?
It's pretty big. They got a pretty big volcano, haven't they?
Olympus Mons.
Olympus Mons, yeah, I love that name. It's a good name.
It's an awesome name, isn't it? Is it called the Marianas Trench?
Oh no, that's one of ours, I think.
Then it's called the. There's another trench, I can't think of its name on Mars. It's got a really cool name.
Terence Trench Derby.
That'll be him. Yeah, that'll be the one. Oh, and of course the Tharsis Bulge. There's something called the Tharsis Bulge on Mars.
Oh yeah, I had one of them.
Yeah, well, look what happened. Of course, look what happened when that went off.
So,
cause you no end of trouble.
145 million square kilometers the surface of Mars, so not unrealistic that there just happens to be something that looks like a face there.
Yeah, there's bound to be some pretty good stuff there, isn't there? But as for, what is it, Yetis, did you say, Rick? Yetis?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Some pictures of a Yeti running around on Mars, you know. I think I'm not sure if it looked to me like he just, I don't know about worked at Starbucks, he looked like he'd just robbed Starbucks and was on the run.
But in all honesty, I mean, it is feasible that life could once have existed on Mars.
Yeah, like minor stuff, yeah.
Microbes and little things, no reason why not, you know?
Maybe like a wiggly worm or two.
Yeah, maybe
nothing.
Maybe some of them theoretically could still live under the surface now, you know?
Yeah, I don't see. I wouldn't be surprised if they did find something.
But you know, tiny little micro things, you know.
Yeah, I tend to be of that mind too. I'm largely of. I mean, there are a couple of things that I do kind of buy about the Martian scenario, having read quite a lot about it. The first one is that that Mars was a significantly different planet millennia ago than it is today, and that that it did at one point, it was a much more that it had a more ecological environment. It wasn't so barren as it is today. And the theory that that I'm fairly happy to subscribe to, even at this point, is that it was hit by some cosmic cataclysm, and that blew off a massive amount of surface material, blew it out into space. It also created that thing I'd mentioned, the Tharsis bulge, because Mars is not a completely spherical shape. When it's like it's wonky. It's got an odd mass amongst it, about on one side to the other, so it's kind of like canted with this big bulge on one side. And also the planet itself, its formation, its geological formation, is very similar to Earth, so it should have an iron core, which should result in a fairly smooth and consistent magnetic shield that sits around the planet. But Mars doesn't have that at all. Its magnetic shield is massively disturbed, and you can see the pictures that measure this, where almost as though the core of the planet is all kind of out of shape, out of kilter, like almost perhaps like as though the inner core has been split in some way. And that shows itself on the surface with these big differences in magnetic, where there are areas of the surface that have no magnetic protection at all, and so you could not put any kind of life there at all. It would be immediately irradiated. And there are other areas where the magnetosphere does come up above the surface, and those places are potential areas where you might be able to put biological life forms, because you need the magnetic protection to protect you from the radiation that's given off from the sun. Without it, you just get fried because there's no protection. And the only way that really realistically, from a physics point of view, that the planets, if we accept the way the planets formed, then the core would have been a solid core. So something must have massively disrupted the planet to split and disturb the core that way. Probably the only thing that could do that is a big cosmic impact by a massive asteroid or something like that. And as a consequence of that, the atmosphere, the small amount of atmosphere which is loosely attracted, because the mass of Mars is significantly lower than that of Earth, then the atmosphere gets stripped off. The problem you've got now is that any kind of moisture that might appear in the atmosphere, like from groundwater or something like that, actually just evaporates into space. There isn't really enough gravitational pull to hold that together. So that's kind of, I accept that theory as being realistic, but yet he's robbing Starbucks and running around the place not wearing it.
Yeah, makes you wonder what we are going to do when we get there, you know.
Well, there are a lot of challenges. I mean, there are a lot of people that think that the people that would go on that first mission to Mars are just going to die. Well, everybody said that about Columbus and all the other people. You'd be surprised sometimes how resilient people can be.
Yeah, and I guess it wouldn't be vastly different to someone living on the space station.
Yeah.
They're pretty old, I guess, in the sentiment that they might die. And when I say old, I just mean not kids,
Yeah.
And see what happens.
If we can keep them resupplied, then there's no reason they couldn't continue to live there, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a lot of money though.
To get out of a bubble, so I guess originally they would land there and live in a metal can, basically, because that's the only place you can live. I guess the dream is it can be a dome somehow,
domes. Now you're talking, John.
A glass
now you're
metal
talking.
dome, so you can actually live on the, then you've obviously got to worry about things like the radioactive soil and shit. You can't just get out and go, well, it's covered up now, we can live here, because I'm sure the soil or whatever's had thousands of years of radiation from the sun and things, so you need to sort that out first.
Don't drink the water kind of thing.
And then eventually you can, if you can figure all these things out, find the right spot that doesn't get too hot and cold, and you can control that, and then get a little dome to live in, and then you still haven't got a shop or anything. Yeah. Once you're
I'm absolutely certain that we can solve these problems for sure. We definitely can solve these problems given time and technology. And we're on this exponential advancement. So we'll, certainly, I think we'll be able to get to that area. But I'm going to make a cheeky little link into kind of moving through the list here. But you were talking about people living on the space station. And of course they do for long periods of time, but the space station sits inside of what's known as the Van Allen belt, which is the outer reaches of the Earth's magnetosphere, which protects you from all of this radiation. And there are many conspiracy theorists that believe that there are some conspiracy theories that believe the Van Allen belt is a solid ring, like almost a solid sphere of iron, on the inside of which are, I don't know, implanted Arduinos and LEDs or something to create the stars. But of course there are other people that believe that biological beings, like human beings, cannot go outside of the Van Allen belt. If they do so, they would be irradiated and die from radiation poisoning very, very quickly.
Why do they believe this? Where'd you get that from?
Well, because the output of the sun. So the sun outputs something like 200 rad units of radiation out into the solar system, and what protects us living on the planet from that radiation is the magnetosphere. So the planet's iron core generates this big magnetic field, which is north and south poles, as you know, and you can see evidence of this radiation when you get big radioactive ionizing storms that create the aurora borealis up in the upper atmosphere, where ionizing radiation hits the particles, and of course light photons are distributed from that. That radiation that's given off across a wide spectrum does not the only kind of things that can absorb it apparently is mass. So you need to absorb radiation, you need mass. So you need things like lead or other materials that can absorb this. So if you go outside of the Van Allen belt, then your body's DNA, the cells in your body, just get damaged, get hit by this gamma radiation that's given off from the sun, and of course that manifests itself as radiation sickness. Apparently, that's what they say. And so, if you're exposed to that, then you die. Hence the reason why nobody ever landed on the moon. There were no moon people walking around. That was all done in black and white film cameras in the Nevada desert.
What about astronomy, though? Like, is there a moon up there, or is it just a big firmament?
I think if we ignore it's solid iron and just think of it as it's impossible to go outside of it, that, like the whole it's solid matter and we can't pass through it. But I think that it is the only thing that can protect us from radiation. Just as an immediate reaction, I can't counter that. I mean, it would disregard the moon landing, but beyond that, I guess there's no other evidence to support that it might actually be false.
If it's like some sort of natural phenomenon that was protecting us, then that's not a million miles.
It's like the Earth's magnetic field, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not a million miles away from that. So, at my limited level, not impossible. I mean, I'm fairly sure it's not right. But as you say, anything that knocks off the moon landings is always problematic, because that's another conspiracy in itself, isn't it? I don't know if we've got that on our agenda. Do we have time for that one?
Yeah, I think we do. I think I was hoping to chew up. We're going to miss a few here. We're going to have to come back to a Truthin 2, because we've got Illuminati, Project Aurora, which I can't talk about, chemtrails and Nibiru and so on and so forth. But let's follow this. Let's follow this along a little bit, because so John just stated his position there, which is that okay, and outside of the magnetosphere, so beyond the Van Allen belt, there is solar radiation that's given off by the sun. And John's saying, well, I'm struggling to counter that. Me too, actually. There's a piece of me that goes, okay, right, yeah, I can get with that. I accept the vast amounts of radiation given off by the sun. I understand that. I recognize that the magnetosphere does indeed protect biological creatures on the planet from that, and that if you expose yourself to that radiation, to levels of radiation like that, in a very short period of time, you become sick, you become ill, and you would eventually die. So that becomes problematic. Now, to what degree, to what level that is, I'm not entirely sure. I do have a tiny counter for that, and that is that each one of the astronauts that apparently went to the moon, but each one of those astronauts, many of them were reporting these things they called sprites, and what they described experiencing was that in their periphery vision, they'd see these like little dancing white lights, or streaks of light that would move across their field of vision, and when they looked at them, they wouldn't be there. And nobody for many years, for a significant number of years, nobody could figure out what that was. And then the scientists began to think that what those were particles of gamma radiation that were traveling through the body and hitting the retina. Yeah, and as they were hitting the retina, it was creating an electrical signal back into the brain that the brain interpreted as a visual trace. What do you think, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard the same accounts where that they got it as well when they closed their eyes, they could see them much more clearly. These flashes of like cosmic rays hitting the back of their eyes, and it's. I mean, from the conspiracy's point of view, I mean, that could all be just made up. But it does account for, like, yeah, we did get hit with radiation, but it wasn't as lethal as you guys made out.
Yeah, and I think it could be both a true, or like both are kind of true in the sense that there could be a hell of a lot of radiation out there. But it's not going to be uniform. It's not going to be like outside of the belt. There is exactly the same amount of radiation in the entirety of space. It's going to be like dependent on where all the planets are and all this sort of stuff. And well,
that's why they have this solid shell bit, don't they? So that's the hook of the theory, isn't it? Really, I mean, everything like either mitigates or like directs radiation in some way, bends it. But that's not enough for a conspiracy theory, because there's nothing. You've got nothing there. So they just said, "Oh right, there's a big shell built by what can only be the Ringworld engineers." Protecting you from it's even got stars put onto it.
I got a couple of mates in that crew. we kitted up much of the radio kit for those guys, actually.
Good contract work.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to take the business where it's going. I mean, Harp's been ultra reliable. And working ever so well. But of course it would be. I built it, and the systems run on Linux, so they're not going to break, are they?
Oh, you're telling us too much, Rick.
Yes, I am.
Giving us the inside track.
Well, so now of course we're only really halfway through this whole conversation. There's another chunk of show notes that we could go on about here, and this could extend into the future, but of course we need to bring our feet back down to ground. We've been at this for about an hour and a half now, I think. We've been running this show. So
get another mug of tea from the kitchen.
We've been educating you guys for an hour and a half. Hope you appreciate it.
But I think we can keep talking about this on a future show.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I think we'll revisit this again, and we'll delve into it a little bit more. Of course, for those of you that are viewing or watching or listening to this, then dive out to our website @random.org.uk. check out some of the shows, and you'll find our contact details, etc. there. You can find us on Google Plus as well. That's probably the best place to get hold of us. If you just ping us a message, Plus at Random Podcast on Google Plus, and let us know what you think. Let us know topics that you want us to talk about or debate, new technology and new ideas. We're always willing to have a chat and talk about those things. Let's just go around and have a few final thoughts on things. My my sort of take on much of this stuff is I find it really fascinating, stimulating and challenging, and there are pieces of it like the Van Allen belt that John and I talked about where, do you know, there are bits of it that I don't have enough knowledge or enough scholarly research to be able to counter it, and there are other stuff like the reptilians that is just so completely ludicrous, you know, that it just isn't going to carry weight, but you know, I tell you what, it keeps you actively engaged. It keeps you on the net looking at YouTube, and keeps your brain lit up and thinking, and keeps your mind open. And that's got to be a good thing. Jack, what say you?
I'm with you, Rick, in that like I don't find any of them so far like very believable. And it'd be nice to be able to find a couple, because I'm sure there's got to be a couple that do have a bit of like, oh, there's something going on here. Maybe it's not this, but it could be this instead. But there's definitely something that's got a bit of meat to it, something that's actually got a bit of believability to it. That's usually right. It usually goes for political ones. Maybe political conspiracies are more believable. But yeah, so far, I mean, we could do the Large Hadron Collider next time. That'd be fun.
Oh. John, what are your take, John? You know, I mean, obviously, you know, a scholar and a master of mathematics and physics and science, and clearly mathematics anyway. But what's your summary? What do you think?
I think my feet are very firmly grounded on earth. I like you said, really, I think some of them are just outrageous, and while I like to entertain the notion almost for entertainment's sake, because I like having a bit of a creative mind, I see them as creative, entertaining stories more than anything else, like the Hollow Earth and the reptilians. Obviously, the things like the life on Mars, I don't really see that as a massive conspiracy or anything. It's just something we're trying to find out, and you know, if there's going to be any conspiracies, they're going to be tiny things that maybe they found better evidence of life on Mars, they just haven't told us yet. I don't think there's going to be, you know, pyramids and cities that they photoshopped out of the pictures, but it might be a case of, hey, look, this photo shows pretty good evidence of this, but let's not share it yet because we want to make sure, or, you know, maybe we don't want to tell them this yet. But it's going to be small things if there's anything hidden, I think, you know. And I don't believe there is anything hidden. I just think that there probably was once some primitive life on Mars, like, you know, amoebas or little centipedes crawling through the rock or something, and then maybe something changed.
Capricorn 1. Capricorn 1 is an excellent conspiracy movie about how they fake a mission to Mars. And it's supposed to be an analogy for the moon landing, so it was related, but it's very good. It's from the 70s, classic 70s conspiracy thriller starring Telly Savalas is in it. He's got a great cameo. O.J. Simpson as well for a bit of
going on the list of things to watch.
Yeah, definitely watch that. Yeah, it does make you think.
Definitely. Good. We'll have a look at that. Okay, so well, look, our time here is done, but I have got a little bit of a treat for listeners and people that are watching. Well, not the viewers, actually. If you want to get this treat and you want to get access to this, then you're gonna need to go and download the podcast from the website. Now, this show, of course, as we catch up because we're behind. I can't tell you when this show will go live. If you want to know when it will go live, you need to go to GitHub and search for @random timer. Download that code, compile it, press the button. It will tell you when you'll be able to download this show from the website. But
just a random number generator.
Yeah.
Back in the day, for my sins about 15 years ago, I'm quite into music, and I played in a band, and we recorded an album, and that album is sat copyrighted in the Royal Bank of Scotland for about probably at least 10 or 11 years now since we recorded it, I would have thought. And but I managed to go and have a discussion with some of the band members not too long ago, and said to them, look, you know, I really think we should start releasing some of this stuff out under Creative Commons license and just kind of get it out there so people can listen to it. So this is going to be the first track that I'm going to release from that album. The band was called Schmug. You spell that SCHMUGG, Schmug. And this track, which I thought was very pertinent for this show on Truthin, this track is called Crazy. And you'll be able to listen to that right after Jackson's last word at the end of the show. So I hope you guys enjoy that. I've really enjoyed talking about this topic. It's a little pet kind of entertainment subject of mine, and I really love it. My name's Rick Timmis, and I'll see you soon.
I've been John Wordsworth, and I'm going to dig back into my hollow earth.
And I'm Jackson Matthews, and I'm telling you to put the glasses on.